All right, welcome to the Friday morning edition, Sidelines. Rob Brown along with Jimmy Hodge, and got a big show lined up today. Get ready. We're going to start off with Eddie Murphy giving us another update on the Ed Murphy Classic coming up this weekend over at the University of Memphis South Campus. Eddie will fill the details in on that. But then we'll be joined by Bo Carter from the Big 12 office out in Dallas. Then in the hour number 2, Doug Dean, Daily Dose, joins us from Birmingham, along with Jimmy Hyams over in Knoxville, longtime sports writer for the Knoxville News Sentinel, does a great show every afternoon on the sports animal up in Knoxville. Man knows his volunteers, has personally danced with Smokey the Great Dog. Eddie, you being a Vol for life, you've probably done that too. And then in the fourth segment, Olin Buchanan, one of the best question askers out there, will join us from College Station, TexAgs.com. What's going on out there? Jimbo Fisher, very confident at media days. This is year 5. What's going to happen? Well, we're going to try to find out. And, practice starts on Monday. A couple of things to keep in mind. Let's thank our great sponsors. We are broadcasting live from the Red River Ford and Toyota studios here in Wynne, Arkansas. The dealership is about to open. They're open 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. as they are every Monday through Saturday. Right now, you're looking to trade in a vehicle. Probably the best values in about 20 plus years. John Dobbs Jr. and the Ward family, y'all know him in Memphis. The Dobbs family's been in the car and truck business for a long time, going way back to James Kirby Dobbs. So great folks over here, about 45 minutes from Memphis. Go to the website, redriverfordtoyota.com. They will deliver anywhere. That's one thing that they are very proud of. They will get your car or truck delivered anywhere if you don't want to come in. But they're here every Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. And Gateway Tire and Service Centers, they go the distance for the customers and the communities where they do work. Support the Boy Scouts of America. And Reforest, Mississippi. Miss Rubin's Rubs, the Black Magic, great on steaks and briskets. The White Magic, ditto. The Seafood Magic, obviously on seafood and fish, freshwater, saltwater. It is magic. And the Creole Magic. And they've got marinades now. They got them at Publix, at Piggly Wiggly's. If they don't have them, ask for them. Say, I'll be back shopping here when they get them, or go to the Amazon or the Walmart website, or misrubins.com. Since 1935, they started at the old Penny Profit Market in Montgomery. Now the Miss Rubin's Rubs are everywhere. Put them on anything that you like to eat, and it'll make it a lot better. We use them on everything, and I'll give them the double Shep Proudfoot thumbs up from Fargo. I'll vouch for them. They are delicious. Eddie, big weekend, man, coming up. The Ed Murphy Classic. This is huge. So, look, rain, shine, it doesn't matter. The event's going to go on. Tell people about what starts today, what time, and how they need to get tickets.
Hey, Rob, appreciate the opportunity this morning to talk to you guys. So tonight, starting at 5:30, so let's go backwards here. So we've got 240, 250 professional athletes coming into Memphis, 50, 55 Olympians that are here to compete from 22 different foreign countries. It's going to be a huge event, guys. I mean, the community really needs to wrap yourself around this and come out and see some fantastic some races. Today at 5:30, we've got that's where we kick off tonight at 5:30. We got a Memphis Community Mile. So anybody that's out there that wants to run the mile, come on out and sign up. You're good, and let's just compete right there. And then at 6 o'clock, we got the youth 1,600 meters. So anybody that's between 8 and 14 years old that wants to come out and compete and run on the same track that all these pros are running on, come on out and let's make it happen. Then with 6:25, we've got a Masters Mile. Anybody that's over 40 that wants to come and run and compete, come on and sign up. We'll have a big time and make it work. And then we go back into a little one at 6:35. We've actually got a little one's 100-yard dash. Anybody, kids that are 8 and under, can come in free, no registration needed. Just come on and get your kids out there and run on the same track that all the pros are running. And then at 6:50, we're going to have Memphis Youth Athletic is sponsoring the 5x1K cross-country open relay. So if you want to get 5 people, run a 1K, do the baton, run around the Memphis track, and run around the indoor facility and the outdoor facility, come out and have a great time. That'll be tonight. And then we're going to follow up with some pro events. We got the women's 800, the men's 800. Then we got the men's triple jump, which is absolutely stacked. We've got some of the top triple jumpers in the world. That's going to be at 8:05. That's sponsored by Rick Spell, his restaurant group. And then we're going to have at 9:10. We're going to do the men's. They're going to come in and try to break the 4-minute mile. We got a few men in here that are definitely going to do it, and that's at 9:10. And then we're going to pop out to the men's 1,500 meter, and then the women's 1,500 meter, and then the men's 3,000, women's 3,000. So we got a loaded day of racing tonight, guys. It's going to be awesome.
Now, Eddie, Jimmy, tell Eddie about your moment on your bucket list, what you did out in Oregon on the track out there. You're going to love this, Eddie.
It was during my Adidas days, and we had a sales meeting in Sun River, which is a resort location in the geographic dead center of Oregon. And Phil Knight has a home there on like the ninth hole. And I was going down there with a buddy, and we decided to take a detour to Eugene. And this was in the days where, you could just walk around. And by the way, if you've never been to Eugene, the campus is awesome because it has all these tree-lined boulevards, and it's just gorgeous. And so we were walking by, and we went to Autzen Stadium. We were able to walk on the field and just do all that stuff. And then when we left there, we strolled over to Hayward Field, and it was summer, so it was nice and warm. I had shorts and so forth. I said, you know what? This has been a bucket list thing for me. I think I'll run a mile, 4 laps around Hayward, and say that I did it. And I did it. And nowadays, if you've seen the renovation, I mean, it's the most unbelievable thing you've ever seen, because they just finished the World Championships there on Sunday. And it was the first time the World Championships of track and field have ever been held in the United States. So I did my 4 laps, and now, of course, it's like a fortress. The only way you can get in just about is if you're a world-class athlete that maybe has a permanent pass, or a fan at one of Oregon's track and field events. So I can say that I have run a mile at world famous Hayward Field.
Yeah. And look, Eddie, I mean, that and Jimmy, that's what's going to be going on at the University of Memphis this weekend. You've got top athletes from around the world, track and field, the sprinters. And Eddie, I think one of the coolest things is where you're going to have the pole vault.
Oh, yeah, the pole vault's going to be at Beale Street. That's just going to be a complete kick. And we've actually got the pole vaulter that Chris Nielsen that finished second to Mondo Duplantis. He's going to be pole vaulting tomorrow night down with us. So we got the number 2 guy from the World Athletics, and I think there's between all the scratches and everything from the World Athletic Championships, it literally, you're so right, it just happened first time ever in the United States. And Sebastian Coe, who back in the day, Rob, our age, this guy dominated middle distance, English guy. Now he's head of the World Athletics Organization. And he said during the Olympic trials, he said, you know what, we're in America for the first time because we want to promote track and field leading up to the 2028 Olympic Games in LA. So that's kind of where we are right now. That's our sweet spot. We're able to fill a void right here. We'll probably I think we've got 50 to 55 of those same athletes that were competing last weekend, along with Chris Nielsen in the pole vault. So it's going to be awesome. That pole vault for Saturday night is going to be great.
Listen, Eddie, and tell people real quick before we let you go how they can get tickets, and again, the official start time and anything else you want to add. And I applaud you for doing this. I think Jimmy and I can tell you, I mean, he ran on the track. Steve Prefontaine ran on track and field, man. It's making a comeback because of people like you honoring your dad. I love it.
Well, I love it. I appreciate the opportunity, Rob. You know that. And so anybody can get your tickets at edmurphyclassic.com. Starts today at 5:30. It's going to go till 10:15 tonight. You obviously got the community races and youth races. And then tomorrow morning, you can kick it right off. We actually got a Puma run in the morning at 7:30. Anybody local runners, let's go run around Audubon Park. Going to do a 3 to 5 mile run at 7:30 in the morning. You can meet over at the University of Memphis track. You can try on some Puma shoes and then go take off. And then the races start at 9:45 in the morning with the ESPN2 telecast from 10:30 to 12:30. And then the coolest thing, Rob, at 12:35, all our kids get to meet with all these Olympians, sign autographs, take selfies, and the pros are going to talk to our kids about what they did in their life to be successful and how they stay on the right track, and maybe we can penetrate and make a difference in our kids' lives.
Hey, absolutely, Eddie. Audrey and I'll be over there later today. Looking forward to seeing you out there. Ed Murphy Classic, folks, do yourselves a favor. Renew your faith in track and field. It is the insurance policy for every sport you play. Eddie, thanks for coming on here with us. Okay. Have a great event.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great day.
You too. Thank you. I tell you what, Jimmy, it really is that South Campus, the University of Memphis, where they are. They have a great track and field setup over there. But and like you've been out to Oregon, and I know whenever I go someplace, I always notice how many tracks they have, and putting tracks in cities anywhere in the country is a win-win deal. But you travel around the world. I mean, track and field events draw crowds bigger than Major League Baseball games. Just, 25, 30,000. No, I know the Braves and some teams like that sell out every night, but it is so big around the world. And I think the fact that we don't have as many track and field programs nowadays, Jimmy, as we used to, is why we don't see the Herschel Walker and the Bo Jackson type athletes coming out. The big guys, they're either playing other positions or whatever, but I am really looking forward to going. I know if you were here, we'd take you with us. It's going, you still got time to get on the train and come down from Chicago if you want to do it, but it is going to be a lot of fun. And I'm with you. I saw the campus when Auburn was out there for the Super Regional in Corvallis. It was beautiful. And Oregon, it is absolutely just, you're right. That campus, it's spectacular, man. Jimmy, just to be another thing too, all these professional athletes coming in, the pole vault on Beale Street tonight, that's going to be something to watch. But I love track and field. I know you do too.
Yeah, I was going to try to find out because when you talk about the pole vault now, I'd forgotten what the world record is on the men's side. I think it's over 20 feet now, maybe 20 feet and change as far as a few inches is concerned. But for so long, everybody was building up. It was like the 4-minute mile, that happened, of course, 70 years ago, almost. Roger Bannister, who's going to break the 20-foot barrier in the pole vault. And it was a 10-day event, the World Championships are. And so when it was televised, it was in the evening, and on weekends, the 2 weekends, they televised also during the day. So I tried to catch as many events as I could. I saw the women's pole vault, but I was not able to, I guess, be around or have my time schedule work out to where I could see the men. But man, I can't imagine being in person, especially in an intimate atmosphere like Beale Street, to see somebody almost pole vault 20 feet in the air. That's an opportunity that if you have a chance to see, I'd try to get there.
Yeah, I'm just curious because the streets are cobblestone on Beale Street, so it's going to have to be obviously on a flat area. But you remember when ESPN Game Day was down there, November, they were down there. ESPN November 1st of 2019 for the Memphis SMU game. I thought that was incredible. They did it at the intersection of BB King and Beale Street, and it was just one of the most incredible atmospheres that I've ever seen for a sporting event. So, track and field, trust me, wherever you have a strong track and field program, and I'm the football coach, I'm going to recommend in the spring, a lot of my guys, I'm going to say you can do both. I think it does nothing. Think about what the discus and the shot do for linemen and wrestlers. How many great linemen, defensive, offensive linemen, period, have you seen over the years that threw the discus, that threw the shot? And even for the big guys running the 60 or running the 100, for that explosiveness, that it helps you a lot. It's not, I'm not an athletic trainer and stuff like that, but I do run and I do that stuff. And there's people I see out on the track in their 80s still working out. And what's that guy I saw, Audrey, we saw recently? He's 100 years old, and this guy works out all the time. And he said, look, he goes, I didn't get competitive until I was 88 years old. So I thought that was one of the best lines ever. Bo Carter, one of the nicest guys around. Bo, native of Sheffield, Alabama, former SID at Mississippi State. Now, a long time in the Big 12 office out there in Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington. One of the three, Bueller, anyone? No, but Big 12 office, and a writer for the baseball and the football foundation, Bo Carter. Hey, man, we've had SEC media days. I was there last week. Big 12 media days, Big 10 media days are going on right now. Again, George Kliavkoff, please have food testers around if you go near Kevin Warren in the Big 10. How about that dadgum alliance? And then there's who was the Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC, is so delusional. He reminds me of Hoover in Animal House when things were falling apart during the parade. Everyone remain calm. There's nothing going on here, Bo, I want you to make some sense, because Jimmy's up there laughing right now going, Rob's on a roll, but kind of makes some, hey, as Ricky used to say to Lucy when she would go shopping and spend a lot of money, you got some splaining to do to me. Jimmy, let's get him to explain this to us.
We do have some explaining to do on this, Rob. Good to talk to you and Jimmy this morning.
Absolutely.
Jim Phillips is the commissioner of the ACC. He came from Northwestern, so he comes from a big academic background like a Vanderbilt or a Stanford. So sometimes they live a little bit with the pie in the sky attitude, like we talked about. But the weirdest thing, both about the alliance and then some of the other stuff you were talking about, the ACC's under a 14-year media contract with ESPN through 2036 with the ACC network and the third-tier broadcast. So that's going to complicate things quite a bit for them if they try to move things around. They've got some clauses in there that give them a little bit of leeway, but it's going to be a mess. And I would love to be a fly on the wall at Pac-12 Media Days. Say that there'll be quite a few questions asked, I'm sure.
Well, I'd just love to see what they're paying the food testers. Okay, because I mean, Jimmy's the one who brought that up. But speaking of that, where is Kim Jong-un? Hadn't heard from him in a while. But anyway, I digress. Look, we're going to do this. We're going to take a quick break. We're on the 1730 format that we are on the weekends when we're on down at Fox 98.3 in Alabama, and we're about to be moving to a new station. I'm really fired up about this. We'll announce that tomorrow on the show. But anyway, let's take a quick break. We're going to be right back. We got Bo Carter, Jimmy Hodge, Rob Brown here with you on this Friday, July 29th.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Rob Brown back here with Jimmy Hodge and Bo Carter. And I'll tell you one thing, listening to Chad House talk about it, House Industries, we're getting rain here for the second day in a row. Last week when we were in Atlanta at SEC Media Days, they got 1.25 inches up here. But, man, we have had a drought. It's been hotter than dragon's breath up here this summer. But this rain, as you know what a great term I heard an Aggie say one time at the pool down on 30A and right out on the Gulf Coast, not the ocean, Bo, as you know, being a Southerner, and Jimmy on the Gulf. And this guy was out there by the pool, and he had his big old Aggie hat / sombrero on, and he goes, I'm going to tell you one thing. That's stronger than 50 acres of fresh cut onions. I was like, sounded like I was talking to Houston Nutt. Get right there, Arkansas. Come on, go. Arkansas Razorbacks. We're going to get after you. Anyway, But we
Pretty
Bo,
good imitation.
yeah,
Rob.
we have needed rain desperately up here. But hey, man, let's get back. You know, Jimmy, you heard what Bo said going into the break about Jim Phillips, about Kevin, you know, Kliavkoff, the commissioner of the Pac-12, and Kevin Warren. It's an odd mix, you know. Can we say it? The Three Stooges. That's what that alliance really ought to be called, because what happened to Rome while Nero fiddled? Rome burned. Jimmy, I mean, why is Jim Phillips so delusional? I mean, and Bo, you're a Vanderbilt graduate. My grandfather and his brother Cadwallader, they all graduated from law school there after 4 years at Virginia Military Institute. I love that place. Doesn't mean that it's not good, because there are a lot of smart people there. But Jim Phillips, man, somebody needs to go in there and throw some cold water on him, Jimmy.
Well, one thing I wanted to say to Bo is that Jim Phillips doesn't make it a point to mention that he got his PhD from Tennessee. So probably without that PhD, that you know, might have been an obstacle maybe for him to get where he is, because, you know, a lot of conferences are big on having that title for their commissioner. Not all, but I mean, it's certainly important. But and he keeps saying, I don't think he said it at this recent ACC media days, but he's made numerous public statements that we're hanging on to try to get Notre Dame to join the conference. The chances of Notre Dame joining the ACC in football as a full-time member are pretty much slim and none. I mean, as you mentioned, their TV contract they're saddled with until 2036, and the only way that situation could change would be if the ACC was able to expand. And right now, the brand names out there that would be available really aren't available from a geographic standpoint. I mean, right now you've got Oregon, Washington. Those are two that stand out. And Notre Dame, in my mind, if they go to a conference, the only two options for them are the SEC and the Big Ten, just because from a financial standpoint, they're just in another planet from everybody else. The amount of money they could pay each member once the conference expansion finally shakes out for both the Big Ten and the Pac-12 in future years is just going to be enormous, and everybody else is just going to be kind of struggling to catch up. But yeah, he's really in a tough situation, and it's not his fault, because when this long-term contract was signed, John Swofford knew that Big Ten schools were going after his major programs then. And he felt that he had to sign a long-term deal along with that exit clause, in which each school would have to pay $60 million to leave the conference in order to keep, his big schools in the league. So he was in a bad situation, a catch-22. So he knew eventually, long-term, this could catch up with them, and that time has arrived, because you know that Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and probably North Carolina, because of their brand strength, they really want to be a part of that big money going forward and the exposure that comes with it.
That's very true. And one thing, Jimmy and Rob, that I noticed about, and this was reported last week, under Notre Dame's current contract with NBC, and they're in the ACC for everything except football, they get $15 million a year, which is really undervalued, and then $7 million from the ACC. So this year, for example, Notre Dame had a $22 million return from network television and part of the conference thing. And Vanderbilt and Northwestern made $52 million each. So go figure that.
Bo, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to say, I want to ask you this, and I want you to pick this back up. You said Notre Dame's going to get $15 million this year from NBC, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, our good friend Francis, a Notre Dame alumnus, said on the show a few months ago, when Notre Dame cut that deal with NBC in 1983, it was, I believe, $10 million a year. So basically, Notre Dame is they're not doing a very good job of keeping up with, the rising prices. I can't believe, I mean, if someone can correct me, type it in, I'll stand corrected, but I believe it was a 5-year deal for $50 million in 1983 with Notre Dame on NBC. So go back, if you would, Bo, and rewind to what you said just a second ago, so our listeners and people watching on TV and Ma and Pa Kettle in Olathe, Kansas can see it, and even our good friend down in the Everglades, Yule Gibbons. Ever eat a pine tree? Many parts are edible.
Yeah.
You remember Yule Gibbons?
Yes,
okay.
the grape nuts guy.
Yeah, but no, those figures are off the charts. I mean, Notre Dame giving their product away.
They really are. They do those rollover contracts where they just say, okay, we'll pay you $11 million for the next 5 years, et cetera. So they did not negotiate. Now I saw they did. Notre Dame's contracts coming due next year, like the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Now I saw they've asked for $75 million, so they finally figured to get up to market prices. So, but that's been you just think about all the advertising NBC has sold on those broadcasts. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, I just, if you've got a good product, one thing you'll find out is, I know some people have told me when they've worked for extremely wealthy people, they said they got a lot of money, but if you work for them, they'll want you to work for free. And that's one thing I ain't doing it. I can tell you one thing, I'm not. But that's what Notre Dame's really doing with NBC. And Jimmy, I know how highly you think of Jack Swarbrick, the athletic director at Notre Dame, but I mean, how does this happen, Jimmy? I mean, what are your thoughts? Quickly, Laura. No, but what do you think factored into that decision to not push for more money from Notre Dame? I know they've got a lot of their own money. Jimmy, can you hear me?
Well, first of all, when that offer was made in the early 80s,
go ahead.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
I haven't changed anything
No.
as far as my end goes on the volume part.
Okay. Well, I'm asking.
Talking
Yeah.
about that $10 million a year offer, that was be revolution. They could, they could dominate from that point. So then when they eventually did have the first contract in 1990, I believe it was the original 5-year deal. Dick Ebersol, who is a Notre Dame graduate, was the head of NBC Sports, and it was huge money. And I think from that point on, it's been, I don't know, just kind of a,
well,
I don't know how you would describe it, honor agreement, a loyalty agreement, or something like that with the money of other schools. But again, it's a standalone too. Notre Dame for all those years, they had NBC to themselves, on every home game Saturday. So, but yeah, I knew the money wasn't that. I thought it was around 13 to 15 million, but Franz Beard has mentioned an entirely larger number, but
well, a larger number. Jimmy, you're fading in and out on us, but yeah. I just,
the money was around what Bo was saying.
Yeah, well, Jimmy,
go ahead, Rob. Made any changes from what I've been doing?
Well, I think what it is, it's a connection on your end. So we'll work through it. See if that's what it is. And so anyway, those figures that you gave about the money, and I'm going to throw this to Bo. Bo, Notre Dame, they have a lot of money. Their endowment's got to be somewhere between $7 and $10 billion, I would guess. But I got to ask you this, Bo. Vanderbilt, when I first got in the bond business in 1991, their endowment back then was $3.2 billion. And then you remember Miss Ingram gave them that $300 million plus gift in the late 90s, Ingram Micro Technology. That's why it's called the Ingram Court there at Memorial Gymnasium. And I just, these endowments, what I want to know is all these universities have these endowments, but the cost of college tuition has just exploded. You know what it costs? I mean, it's insane. What are they there for? It's like they're like a piece of artwork, that is valued at $25 million. And you look at it and you go, man, I could have done that blindfolded and drunk. I mean,
Well, I know exactly. And this is an interesting juxtaposition there too. 1983 was the year that the College Football Association came about. Remember, Chuck Ninus broke off from the NCAA. The NCAA had all television rights since the late 40s, early 50s, and the CFA made it a conference negotiation package for all the the Raycom, the SEC, the Southeastern television, sports, TVS, and all that group. And it, I think that was all part of the Notre Dame negotiation too. So it's really, they were low figures, and you hit the nail on the head too, Rob. It was some sort of a loyalty thing, really, because they had. We used to call NBC the Notre Dame Broadcasting Company sometimes. So they definitely had a corner on that market.
Well, and Jimmy, you think back to this situation with Notre Dame and Dick Ebersol. They've had a very comfortable deal. It's been a gravy train for a long time, but to only go from $10 million in 1983 to $15 million a year is shocking. Jimmy, jump in this when you can. I know we're having a little bit of trouble with your connection. So you tell me, Jimmy, does Notre Dame, if they're being honest with themselves and everybody in America, they don't have to join a conference. And all the people running around with their hair on fire about conference expansion, that has abated somewhat, hasn't it? Yeah, Bo. I mean,
Yes.
It's really gone down, and I think Greg Sankey at SEC Media Days, I know you saw what went on there, and that was a different situation. But Greg Sankey's like, hey, we're comfortable at 16. I know Dennis Dodd, who has been on the show with us a couple of times recently, CBS's lead national college football writer. Great, love having him on the show. He, like Tony Barnhart and the other True Grit journalists and you yourself, you dig for the story. But Greg Sankey's very comfortable in where the SEC is right now. Okay.
That is very true. Again, we talked about earlier in the show, in a perfect world, they'd love to have 4 16-team conferences. And then you could go ahead and expand the college football playoff, which is a big factor in all this. And you hit the nail on the head. The alliance of the Pac-12, ACC, and Big Ten stood together and sort of voted down the alliance last year when they were going to try to go from 4 to either 8 or 12 teams. Interesting, Mark Keenum, the Mississippi State president, who's a former high school football player in good old Corinth, Mississippi, on Highway 72 there. But it is the chairman of the oversight committee for the college football playoff, and he was really disappointed that they didn't expand. It was sort of a block vote by those 3 conferences. So and sorry to bring up a new topic, but that's
we want, look, Bo, that's why you're on here. That's why I was like, you know what? We carved out some time in the first segment of the show, and I was like, I'm going to get you on here longer, because every time we're on with you, it's like, we're gasping for air, like, when you go, because I'm like, I got more stuff I want to ask you, and I enjoy the hell out of having you on here.
Thanks.
You bet, man. All right, so the atmosphere, we had Ken Capps. I don't know if you know him. He's a member of the Football Writers Association.
Yes, his house this week.
Yeah, he was on. I met him at Media Days last week in Atlanta, it's just an incredible time to meet a lot of the best people. I met him, and he was on yesterday, and he was really funny. He said, I don't want to see the Red River Classic go away. I said, hell, I don't either. And he said, I've been to every one of them since 1978. I'm like, wow. I mean, that is, you live in Arlington, Dallas, Fort Worth. I know that term. I hate it, but I got to say it. Where within the Metroplex do you live?
That's right. Well, like Carrollton, which is we're in North Denton County, about 20 miles from the University of North Texas campus. You'll love this, Rob. The land taxes and insurance are a little cheaper out here than than Dallas County or Tarrant
I
County.
can't
or Fort
imagine.
Worth is.
I can't.
That's right. We're always looking to economize.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. And the other one that's brought up during Big 12 Media Day, what's going to happen in the Bedlam series between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State? They've played that continuously since 1901. And Oklahoma's kind of hinted they haven't really come out with a strong statement. They said, once they go to the SEC, that may be played every other year, or they may drop it like the Texas A&M series that hasn't been played for 11 years.
I don't like the thought of that at all. And I want to say something. Maury Gaston, a great friend of mine and of this show with American Cast Iron Pipe Company. He was one of our sponsors that made our trip to Media Days possible in Atlanta. Has very close friends, a lot of them in Stillwater. And, a lot of people will tell you that Oklahoma State's a lot like Mississippi State. It's a lot like Texas A&M. It's a lot like Auburn. But man, those folks out there, they are loyal. I do not want to see Bedlam go away. That would be horrible if that happens. It's been bad enough not having Texas A&M in Texas. And, a lot, and we're going to have Olin Buchanan on later in the show, texags.com. And Texas and A&M, I mean, the fans like me, we want it. I don't know how much the two schools want it. A&M's had that advantage the last 11 years over Texas being in the SEC. Bo, hold on. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with more on this Friday, July 29th, 2022. It is a great day, folks. Great conversation, again, with Bo Carter, Jimmy Hodge, Rob Brown, and we've got a long way to go. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you, holding court, man. Jimmy Hodge up in Lake Zurich. Bo Carter out in Carrollton, Texas. I know about Carrollton, Georgia. Sam Haney, Tom Glanton, Bill Hambrick, Big Chick. That's right there outside of Atlanta on Highway 27, home of West Georgia. Used to go to soccer camp over there, one of the hottest places around. But, Jimmy, you're back in here with us right now. And we're talking about the Bedlam possibly being lost when Oklahoma comes to the SEC, or maybe played every other year. Bo mentioned it's been played every year continuously since 1901. And I just think it's so cool. I love these rivalries, but I'll tell you right now, and Bo, you probably know Mike Gundy, don't you?
Yes, he's quite a character.
Yeah.
Nice guy, though.
Hey, help us get him on this show, any of those coaches out there, because I'm going to tell you something. I love football. I say this every show. I love it. I want it to be good all over the country. I mean, not Auburn. I want them to be number one. Of course, that's my school, but I love it everywhere. I don't hate anybody. But that's a great rivalry. And Jimmy, you've been out there. You've been a lot of places with your years with Adidas Team Sports. Man, why not? Why would Oklahoma? Well, again, they're going to say, well, we're in the SEC. Why do we want to help Oklahoma State? But what about the people of the state who fund those universities?
Well, there's a lot of factors involved when you're talking about rivalries like that. But, Boone Pickens is no longer with us. So, he's not able to weigh in on this matter personally. But Mike Gundy last week at Big 12 Media Days or maybe it was the week before. I think they got the jump on everybody else as far as having the earliest media day. But he just flat out said that Oklahoma is the school that left the Big 12. So as far as he's concerned, this series is over in football as of now, unless, like you say, some financial heavy hitters enter the fray, or maybe even the state legislature weighs in and says, hey, we're going to cut public funding for Oklahoma State if they don't fall in on this idea to keep Bedlam going. So I think it's an episode to be continued, and we'll just kind of wait and see how it pans out. But there certainly are a lot of emotions involved in a situation like this, and like I said, we still don't know how all these final conference alignments are going to be determined, with how many teams are going to be in each league and all of that. So we'll just have to wait and see. But as of right now, as we all know, Mike Gundy is in no mood for this to continue, although Texas and Oklahoma will be playing this season and the next 2 football seasons in the Big 12. So a lot could happen between now and then. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And Bo, what is the temperature out there in Big 12 country about, it's like a marriage that's just falling apart, the husband and the wife are looking at each other and saying, why do we want to stay together? Oh, for the kids. What, you want to see the kids watch us push each other away and walk down the hall and say not nice things to one another? That's kind of what the Oklahoma and Texas are in a position being still in the Big 12, isn't it? I mean, honestly.
It really is. Yeah. One thing, Brent Venables, who's the new head coach of Oklahoma, was at Clemson. They've kept the South Carolina rivalry going all that year, from their
Exactly.
Big Thursday deal they started in the 1920s and 30s during the South Carolina State Fair. So
yeah,
he might be amenable to try to carry it on. And you guys hit it on a minute ago. Texas A&M in the middle 2010s actually came up and said, well, we'd like to start playing Texas again. And Texas more or less just said, nope, we don't want any part of you. So I don't know. There was kind of also some bad blood about the Longhorn Network in the Big 12. So they both kind of mutually agreed to not play again until they join until they're reunited in the SEC here.
All right, Bo, here's another question for you. And I want to ask this, and I think Jimmy would agree. Did the Longhorn Network, that's what drove Nebraska. Colorado, I'm not sure those people know when it's football season. There's
right.
That campus is high on life, man. But I'm just saying that I wonder what the Big 12 would be like right now if the Big 12 at the Longhorn Network hadn't have been launched, because Texas wanted, in the SEC, there's complete revenue sharing. It's all equal. I mean, this, you've been in the Big 12 office. So, I mean, you've forgotten more than I know about it.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, that was a real big sticking point. ESPN essentially pays, they haven't really come out with it, but they found off tax records. ESPN pays Texas $30 million a year for the Longhorn Network, just a flat payment, no matter how ratings go or whatever. And there was a little bit of some leeway there. They were going to televise like a Texas Tech, Texas State football game, or maybe UTSA versus somebody game, sort of a corollary to the Longhorn Network. But I think the other Big 12 schools said, no, we're not. If you're going to keep all the revenue, we're not going to do it. And former Big 12 Commissioner Kevin Weiberg also was kind of pushing for just like an equal distribution that the SEC's had since 1933. The Big 12 had some clauses in there that if some team was on TV 6 times and another team was on television 4 times, that the team on 6 times would get 2 more $50,000 or $100,000 appearance fees. So there's a lot of lawyering up in that thing. So that was another reason I think the Big 12, besides the Longhorn Network, the equal splitting of distribution at the end of the year sort of caused things to come apart.
Well, and before I go back to Jimmy, I remember the kindly gesture on the part of Coach Bryant in Alabama would schedule teams like Vanderbilt to get an extra conference game to help them at the gate. Basically, it was like being nice to you before a public beheading. It's just, I mean, to tell you, that was, but I think the reason the SEC is such a close conference, guys, is because since 1933, the year the conference was founded, there has been complete revenue sharing, Jimmy. You gotta know that right there is why at the end of every game, SEC. And the Big 12, I mean, Harold Grader, you know him, Bo, and Jimmy, you talked to him on the show. So I saw him every day, by the way, at SEC Media Days last week. He was on the show with us. He goes up to every single coach and talks to him because the SEC Big 12, partnership for the Liberty Bowl. But that's cool stuff, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go back to this Big 12 formation, and at the start of it, I wanted to mention that Tom Osborne was vehemently opposed to Texas joining the Big 12 conference because, well, first of all, Dr. Tom doesn't have a PhD in educational psychology for nothing.
Amen.
I mean, he saw what was coming down the line. And he predicted openly that the Big 12 office would be moved from Kansas City to Dallas. That's exactly what happened. And it really became the center of all conference operations. And the Longhorn Network didn't come into existence until, maybe, I don't know, as long as maybe 10 years after that. So Dr. Tom saw what was coming, and Texas basically did end up running the league, and they got the big TV deal with ESPN, in which they formed the Longhorn Network. But eventually, though, it was going to get to this because the Big 12 figures, and I know Bo is aware of this, there was a survey, I think, last year, which involved maybe 2 or 3 previous seasons in which every TV game that involved conference matchups, Texas and Oklahoma, all of those games they were involved in were like the top 15 rated games. And any game that they participated in that was a Big 12 matchup generated over, I think, 75% of TV revenues. So you knew Texas and Oklahoma were not long for this conference, but knowing their power from a brand standpoint and an exposure standpoint. And, I thought it was just a matter of time before, they made that move. And of course, that started all the dominoes falling. And we don't know where all of them will end up, obviously.
Jimmy, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, they did that survey, and Texas and Oklahoma mentioned that specifically. When they a couple of months ago, or you're right, when the survey was completed, and said, "Hey, we're pulling the thing." It even goes back just briefly to the Southwest Conference. They, if you guys remember, Houston and Rice were drawing like 11 or 12,000 people a game, and this was the reason Arkansas pulled out in '91. They had a game guarantee that ranged started early when the conference ended up as $175,000. Well, before the conference ended, it was $175,000 for the visiting team, which was a good bit of money in the early '90s. And then after Arkansas left, they passed a thing that the home team could keep all revenues. There'd be no game guarantee for the visiting team in conference games. So Frank Broyles came. We were double crossed.
Yeah, Big Daddy.
I can't do a good Frank Broyles, the late great Frank Broyles, wonderful guy.
Yeah,
but he claimed he was double crossed in the whole thing. And honestly, if they changed that before Arkansas left, they might have done so. What they were saying to Arkansas would play in Houston and have 15, 20,000 fans, and Rice or Houston would have like 6,000 fans out of a crowd of about 20 or 25,000. So they were, essentially supporting the team they were playing, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Even back then, the home team in basketball for an automatic win would pay the visitors $30,000 plus hotel rooms.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, Bo.
So,
Bo, here's some Wall Street Journal put out this list of counting Oklahoma and Texas because they're coming into the SEC. They ranked them 1 through 16 in the brand value. They've got Texas brand is worth $1,108,000,000. Alabama $1,008,000,000, and then Georgia third at $891 million. Oklahoma fourth at $886 million, and Auburn fifth at $872 million. Then there's LSU at $852. Then you go down, Tennessee $728, Florida $635, Texas A&M $541, and Arkansas. This is what's incredible, $463 million. Now you look at the population. We think that there's, at least that we know of, I hadn't checked the numbers this morning on the river. Texas over 30 million people. Alabama about 5.1 million people. State of Georgia 11 million and change. Oklahoma about 5 million people. So then Louisiana, a little over 5 million. Tennessee, 7.5, 8 million. Florida, 20 million. And again, Texas A&M, Arkansas, 2.8 million. And they've got a brand. I mean, there's not another state in America with less than 3 million people that gets in the neighborhood of what Arkansas, that 463 million. That's why Frank Broyles did what he did. And
he did, and don't forget about the Walton family. They probably they probably contributed quite a bit to that. The per capita income over there. But no, they. I mean, that really speaks to the loyalty of the fans. And, I didn't hear Vanderbilt in there. They're probably around 128 or somewhere.
Vanderbilt is at 81 million is what they value their brand at. Now, Missouri's at 122, Mississippi State at 223. Kentucky 271, Ole Miss 342, South Carolina 461. So that, I'm telling you, man, and I think that counts on your brand. I mean, you know what that means. I mean, it's TV, it's souvenir, it's everything. But your brand value, you're bringing in Texas and OU, and Jimmy and I talk about this every day. That there's just there are going to be a lot of eyeballs, and the Texas State Fair. I mean, Bo. Golly, we all long for the days when we had the fair with the 5-legged goat there, and the bearded woman, and turkey legs, funnel cakes. Let's think about some of the other ones. Prono pups. Of course, that's a shout out to our good friend Danny Andrini and the Prono pup people. But you think about it: cotton candy, cold beers. The Texas State Fair. You got to have the Red River rivalry. You can't. I mean, I know A&M and Texas people feel differently, but as a fan, you got to have Bedlam, Red River Classic, Texas A&M. Look, man, let the fans have their say, because Bo, the fans are the free market.
That's exactly right. And there was talk about trying to move the Texas Oklahoma game over to AT&T Stadium, which actually with standing room only, they can get about 104,000 in there. And the Cotton Bowl Stadium has been enlarged. It's 92 and change. But
Cotton Bowl is
you hit the nail on the head. People are so they played that game every year at either Fair Park Stadium or now the Cotton Bowl Stadium since 1929. So there are some traditionalists out there that try to hold on to what they have, and plus it's good for Oklahoma's recruiting. They come down here and they make a big splash, and their recruiting base is probably about 40 or 50% in Texas, so they love the exposure that gives to them.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like obviously Auburn, Alabama. Why? Well, then you should have kept it in Birmingham. Well, I remember a story I heard, and you probably can vouch for it, Bo. Coach Dye had Auburn up there, I think at the Sheridan downtown by the medical center, and Auburn was their team hotel for the Iron Bowl that year. And a bunch of the waitresses and the help were wearing Alabama stuff. And Coach Dye apparently told somebody, said, "Let me tell you something. We have got this place rented." And one thing led to another. They showed back up in Auburn stuff. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Now, can you? No. You remember Shep Proudfoot, that guy in the movie Fargo? Oh yeah, I'll vouch for him. Yeah, sure. Can you vouch for that, Bo or Jimmy? Anyone? I mean, But look, as Coach Dye would say, hey, the guy selling you Cokes and parking your cars wearing an Alabama hat, that wasn't really neutral. But is Texas, Oklahoma, Jimmy, Bo, somebody weigh in? We got about a minute. How neutral is that?
Jimmy, you go first after you said.
Got about 30 seconds.
It's neutral. It's dead even, 50-50. But, Bo, I wanted to say something about that. the future of the series and the location. Have any renovations been done at all to the Cotton Bowl in the last 30 years?
Yeah, they did. They added 18,000 seats and actually put in some restaurants for a change. And they do have concession stands outside, all the beer stands outside. So they've done some stuff. They put some new seats in and actually picks up the press box a little bit. So it's really been it's not an ideal deal. It's sort of like Wrigley Field in Fenway Park. It's old, but they've put a few coats of paint on it there.
Well, Bo, look, man, we run out of time. This has been an unbelievable segment. Let's do this again next week. And I did not know that about the Cotton Bowl. That gives me hope, man. Hey, we'll be right back with Jimmy Hyams up in Knoxville talking about the Vols Rocky Top after this message.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. Hour number 2. Great stuff with Bo Carter out in Big 12 office country in Texas. Wow, they have renovated the Cotton Bowl there at the Texas State Fair, home of the Red River Classic, Oklahoma and Texas. I think he said it's 92,000 now, and standing room only at AT&T Stadium, Jerry's World, would be 100,000+. So I like it being at the Cotton Bowl there at the Texas State Fair. Gotta love turkey legs, funnel cakes, and there's nothing like the fair, man. The first time I ever saw the 5-legged goat, and I'll never forget it. Jimmy Hyams, thank you for joining us here this morning. How excited are you? I saw you at Media Days. Man, y'all were busy nonstop, either down on the floor, up there doing your show. But Monday or Tuesday, depending on where you are, we're going to start football practice. It's going to be about depth charts, who's making climbing the ladder, NIL, the portal, and all that stuff will be pushed to the way back, and we'll be talking about what really matters, and that's these games. How excited are the Vol fans that you're hearing from every day?
I think they're very excited. They anticipate a high-scoring offense, which I think a lot of folks do. I think there'll be a lot of wild games that'll be played, and I think that there's hope that Tennessee can be a top 25 team and can win 9 games.
Yeah, and Hendon Hooker coming back, he had a hell of a year last year coming over from Virginia Tech. Joe Milton started out the first few games. and that all changed. But the one thing, and you talked about it last year before the season started, look at what, Josh Heupel had done when he went to Missouri. They were last in the league, and he got them up in the top 1 or 2 both years quickly. Okay. Tennessee, they're not just, 4 wideouts in an empty set backfield. They can impose their will on teams. They ran for 457 yards and a road win. I don't care who you're playing. You do that on the road in the SEC, that's impressive. And then they go on the road and they beat Kentucky in a night game in Lexington, a 10-win Kentucky team with total time of possession of 14 minutes and 47 seconds. I mean, that's the stuff that gets people really excited. And now you're seeing Tennessee pick 2nd or 3rd in the East. I don't know if they're ready to challenge Georgia, but they're going to play them, which means they got a chance.
Just think how bad they'd have beat Kentucky if they'd have had the ball for 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point.
It was a pretty amazing performance by Tennessee to pull that off. They scored 3 touchdowns just so fast against Kentucky, but I think you're going to see some more games like that. Look, for Tennessee to take that next step, they got to be better on defense, and defensively, they've got to be better at stacking the quarterback. They got to put more heat on the quarterback, and they got to get off the field on 3rd down. Now, if they could do those 2 things, then they can take the next step. Offensively, as good as they weren't really very good in 3rd and short yardage situations. They were actually better when they had 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 8. But when it was 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, they weren't very good. They need to improve that as well. So if they could do those 2 things, then I think Tennessee will easily be a top 25 team.
Yeah, won't be surprised. Doug Dean is on here with us down at the AU Dose down in Birmingham, and Jimmy Hodge. And Jimmy Hodge, I like what Jimmy Hyams said. It's the possibility of what Tennessee could have done with Kentucky last year with 15 minutes instead of 14 minutes and 47 seconds. But Jimmy, you go back a year ago when Tennessee opened up in game 1. They looked like a well-oiled machine that first couple of drives, but then a few games later, you got to change at quarterback. Are you pretty sold on Hendon Hooker? Because I damn sure am.
Well, I don't know how anybody can. I mean, he came in there, I guess, game 4 or so as the permanent starter and hasn't looked back. And again, Tennessee was number 1 out of 130 FBS teams in minimum time per offensive possession in a 60-minute game. And I don't think a lot of people realize how devastating that can be to an opposing team when your offense has gone on a 7-minute, 75-yard drive. You had to earn every yard you get to score a touchdown. And then, one play after the opening kickoff, Tennessee scores, on a 70-yard pass and catch, and then your offense has to go right back out there. And imagine those defensive coordinators, Jimmy. The head coach goes over there to the DC and said, "What on earth is going on? You sure can't complain about the defense not getting enough rest. You're out there one play and you let them go 80 yards, And I mean, it can make life miserable for everybody on the opposing side. So I've got to imagine that there's going to be a lot of defensive coordinators around the league just making sure that they can do everything they can to, at least if they can't stop explosion plays, not allow 75, 80-yard scoring plays. But in regard to your comment on the defense, how is Tennessee standing right now up front defensively as far as size and depth goes? Because we all know the SEC is a line of scrimmage league, and you got to have those big horses up front to be able to neutralize the line of scrimmage.
Well, there's depth and then there's good depth. So they have enough bodies, but I don't know that they have enough good players up front. That's a concern to me. I do think they've got 3 potential pass rushers that could make an impact. I think Byron Young can be a 10-sack guy. Tyler Barron, that we had on our show yesterday, he's a guy that needs to jump up there and get 6 or 8 sacks. So does Roman Harrison. Those 3 have got to come through. If there's a freshman that can make some noise, all the better. But those three veterans, in my opinion, have got to make some noise. I think Amari Thomas is a really good defensive tackle. Beyond that, I just don't see a whole lot on that defensive line. There are a lot of bodies, and they're going to probably rotate a lot of folks in there. But that's a concern. They ended up as the season went on, they became less and less effective against the run, and I think that could be a problem again this year. But the whole key is this to me: they're going to lead a lot of games in the fourth quarter. Can they make the defensive stop, which means a sack, which means a PBU, which means an interception, a forced turnover somewhere? That's what I don't know. Otherwise, they're going to be in a whole lot of shootouts like that Purdue game.
Yeah. Doug Dean?
Good morning. So this is Jimmy Hyams we got in Knoxville. And
oh, yeah.
We got two Jimmys and a Rob. That's almost a winning hand.
That's right.
Hey, I started to sport this today, Rob.
Oh, God.
And because that would be the next, wouldn't it be a shocker in the next couple of years if Commissioner Sankey were to pull off the Fighting Irish? Let me see if I can dust off. We'll go back to Tennessee Vols and other SEC football. I was enjoying that banter. But imagine if Sankey pulled that off. I'm going to dust off, which Jimmy Hodges will well remember, not necessarily in a pleasant way, a play from the Patrick Fain Dye playbook to help a team beat Alabama when he's not even playing them. Yeah, I refer, of course, to the famous Georgia's not man enough to run the football line. Yeah. I don't have any idea whether it probably didn't help the Crimson Tide that day. I know that most of my Bama friends were not very happy about that. But Notre Dame, you're not man enough to join the SEC. I'm calling you out right now. And actually, I think Notre Dame probably, this is a tangent, apologize, but I think that a factor thinking, if they get to the conclusion, I think all of us have drawn, that they're going to have to ally with some Big Ten or SEC or whomever sooner than later. It's just how it's unfolding. But I don't think Notre Dame would feel very sought after, adored, and loved by the Southeastern Conference. May sound silly to say that, but we just seem to have a disdain for I don't. They're my second favorite team for reasons that we can talk about another day. But if God knows they're indisputably a powerhouse national brand. So I'll just park that amusing comment for now. I'll tell you what I'm anxious to see this year. And because they're so solid in their programs and their brand and their roster, Alabama and Georgia probably can't help us with this unless they were to have somehow a negative surprise, which is unlikely. But I'm always interested in what will be the things that maybe they're not a black swan event, but you just never exactly coming in the Southeast. For example, that's bias here, but 2013 Auburn to get embarrassed a little bit on the road at LSU and then nearly run the table from there. Didn't see it coming. There were the lynch mobs were forming in Lee County. I would love to see Tennessee turn the corner this year. They showed signs of it last year, and that they certainly, for my money, Neyland Stadium, I think you mentioned this, Rob, probably owns the most iconic game day sights and sounds with the Tennessee River right there. It's just, it's to me, it's one of those programs that just has to be, contending in top 10 year in, year out. The other surprise I'd be curious about, remember just a couple of years ago, was it that Kentucky found itself with injuries at QB and they had no choice but to go heavy quarterback run, and nobody could deal with them. You remember that year?
Yeah. I mean, and Jimmy Hyams, along with the lines of what Doug is saying.
What are the surprises?
Yeah. I think Tennessee needs to be a program that's good every year. And people say, well, that you can't say that, but they need to be strong for college football. I mean, are you getting the feeling? It looks like you've got a rock star, superstar athletic director and all. And let's hear from Tennessee, because that's my favorite road trip.
What are you asking me if I think Tennessee
yeah
really good?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, historically, you've covered the Vols for a long time. Don't they? I think they need to be one of the better programs in the SEC when they're good. And there's 100,000 plus at Neyland Stadium, along the lines of what Doug was saying. It's good for college football. It's great for college football.
Yeah, and I think under Josh Heupel, they're going to be really good. Whether or not they can take that next step, I don't know. I do think his offense is one that can sustain success in the SEC. We talked to a number of people at the SEC football media days that they think that too, that offense will work in the league. The question is, can you get enough defensive players to make you a national championship contender or an SEC championship contender? I don't know that answer yet, but I do think Tennessee is going to be a tough out for a lot of people. Now, I don't think they're going to beat Alabama or Georgia this year. They're not ready for that. They can beat everybody else on the schedule, in my opinion. Now, we don't know how good LSU is going to be with 14 transfers. I don't expect Florida to be that good this year. So I do think Tennessee's got a chance to beat everybody on the schedule, not named Alabama or Georgia. But I think with what they're doing, the momentum they have, the recruiting that they're doing, the quarterback that they got coming in, the quarterback that's already on campus that may end up beating out Nico, I think offensively they are going to be a team to challenge for the foreseeable future as long as Josh Heupel is there. Again, the question is, can they put together a defense good enough to be on the field for 80 to 90 snaps a game and good enough to make plays in the fourth quarter to win games?
Jimmy Hyams, who is your top? Rodney Garner has a reputation. He sent over 41 guys to the NFL that he's coached. That's pretty impressive. He's been doing it a while. That's impressive. Last year, you noticed improvement immediately with Tennessee's defensive line. Who are a couple of guys maybe that we're not familiar with that you think are going to step up this year in 2022 on the defensive front for Tennessee? Because that is where it all starts.
Well, I would put Amari Thomas in there. I think he's a guy that's ready to step up and have a big year. I think he's a real good player. He tutored under Matthew Butler last year. Matthew Butler played an inordinate number of snaps for defensive linemen. And so I think I think that Amari Thomas is the guy to watch out for. I think he's somebody that could step up and look, and I'm not saying a dominant player, but I am saying somebody that could potentially be a third team all SEC kind of guy. I think he could do that. But I'm going to be honest with you, Mom. Now, when you say people that they're not familiar with, Byron Young is the defensive end. I already mentioned him earlier, that I think could be a double-digit sack guy. So I don't think that would be a surprise to anybody. But the problem is, beyond that, there just aren't that many people that step out. I'll give you one guy that has the potential, but again, potential, we all know what that means, right? He hadn't done it yet. Elijah Simmons. Elijah Simmons is a guy that could step up and be a really solid defensive tackle for Tennessee. He is very strong. He's very compact. He can dunk a basketball. The guy's got really good explosiveness. And so if I had to pick somebody else besides Thomas that I think might step up and make some noise and be a good player, I'm going to go with Elijah Simmons.
Okay. I mean, and I just remember watching Tennessee last year and the way they fought. They played a full 60 in that Purdue game. That sticks with me. I think they're going to come out swinging, and they've been just jonesing to get back on the field from the last snap, the way that Purdue game ended. I just think Josh Heupel is the right guy at the right time at Tennessee, and it's fun watching this. I mean, 7 wins last year, could have been 9. You know what? Hey, Jimmy, Doug, jump in this. Jimmy Hodge or Doug Dean, jump in here.
I think I was just going to jump footnote for Jimmy Hyams. Rivals, and then the services vary a little bit, but Rivals has Tennessee 6th in recruiting as we sit. So that's got to have Vol fans pretty fired up about stockpiling and building for the future. And it also suggests that, unlike my Auburn Tigers, Tennessee has got their act together on the NIL front.
Yeah, and along those lines, we talked to somebody with Spire Sports, and he said that Spire Sports, now they're not the only ones representing Tennessee athletes, but they're the main one. He said that they represented 155 athletes last year and they made $4 million. So, and once Nico Iamaleava joins the group, he's making $2 million a year. So that's going to pony that up. But yeah, Tennessee is doing very well in the NIL space.
Well, look, we're about to have to take a break, and then we're going to come back. I know Jimmy Hodge has another question for you, Jimmy Hyams. But that NIL deal, I mean, yeah, I think more and more schools are going to collectives, almost like nonprofits for the student athletes. But it's everywhere. But one thing we know about Tennessee, they've got a super passionate fan base. And the Vol fans are starting to smell victory. You know, like MJ cooking ribs. It smells good, smells like victory. But we're going to talk about that after this quick break with more Sidelines on this Friday, July 29th in hour number 2.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back with Doug Dean, Jimmy Hodge, and Jimmy Hyams up in Knoxville. And Jimmy Hodge, jump back in here with Jimmy. I know you had a question on more questions on Tennessee.
Well, Jimmy, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier that you thought Tennessee really needed more quality players in the defensive front. And I was curious if the coaching staff was at a point, and I wanted to find out if what you felt about the incoming group of freshmen, if some of those guys are at a point that they are almost as good as some of the veteran players that maybe haven't developed to be as good as the coaching staff would like. Do you think the coaching staff would be in a position to where they might come to the conclusion that, hey, if it's almost even between the younger players and the guys that have been here a while, why not go with the some freshmen or younger players, redshirt freshmen, that might be able to, get some really needed experience at this level, so that next year they would have had a meaningful game experience and be much better prepared maybe to make a significant contribution early next season, or with just future potential in mind?
Well, I do think they're going to incorporate a number of those younger guys into the equation. I think an edge rusher by the name of Joshua Joseph has a chance to help them. And then another guy that I like is a guy named James Pierce. He's from Charlotte, North Carolina. I think he's a guy that's going to see quite a bit of action. There's a guy named Jordan Phillips. He came in during bowl practice and worked with him some. That's another defensive lineman that I think could see some action as a true freshman. Those would be, and there's another one, Tyree West. So I think those four, he's out of Georgia. He's a 4-star. I think those four could end up seeing quite a bit of action for Tennessee. And some of it is going to be just because they don't have a lot of quality depth. But I do think Tennessee is high on those four, and I could see each of them getting more and more snaps as the season progresses.
Yeah, and, along those lines, you look at offensive line. And I go back, you said something last year that really, caught my ear, and it was about the 2020 Tennessee team had 4 of their starting 5 offensive linemen out of high school were ranked as 5 stars. And that was a hell of a group. But, they didn't do as well as you would have thought, and a lot of reasons for that. But strength of the Tennessee offensive line now, how deep are they on that level? Because, again, if you don't have the linemen on defense, offense up front, the skill players, as good as they may be, and the quarterback and all, it's not going to work like you draw it up in the planning room.
They're not very deep on the offensive line either. They've got a lot of bodies, but they're not very deep. I do like their starting lineup. I think Cooper Mays at center is a really good player. I think Jerome Carvin, I think Javante Spraggins, I think they're good players. Darnell Wright is going to start at tackle. We talked to him yesterday, and I said, which one do you prefer? He said, whatever they want me to do. He could play left tackle or he could play right tackle. Dane Davis, a former walk-on, could very well be the other starting tackle for Tennessee. But I think they're one tackle shy of having an even more solid offensive line. But there just isn't a whole lot of depth behind them. They've had a few players that have transferred. There's a guy named J.J. Crawford who could end up being one of the tackles. Kingston Harris, Jackson Lampley, Ollie Lane. They've got some bodies there, but they haven't proven they can play in the SEC. So I think it's going to be very important for Tennessee, one, to find another offensive tackle, whether that's Dane Davis or J.J. Crawford. Secondly, they got to stay healthy because they just don't have very much. They don't have quality depth on that offensive line.
Yeah, and I just think it's hard for everybody. Is Alabama last year brought in the most highly touted offensive line class in the country, and they struggled on the offensive line. That kind of caught me by surprise. But again, that's a position that it takes time to develop those players. Doug, we got time for one more question before Jimmy has to go and we get ready for Olin Buchanan. But jump on in.
Jimmy Hyams, first of all, I have a little bit of a love affair for the Vols, and it arises from what at least I consider just an awesome Auburn-Tennessee rivalry. If you go back a little ways, with realignment, is it your sense that at least some segment of Vols fans, it might be the older than millennial crowd like myself, would relish an opportunity for more frequent revival of some of those great rivalries?
Absolutely. And I hope that's what happens. I'm a 99% convinced that the SEC is going to go to a 9-game schedule and a 6-3 model, 3 permanent and 6 rotators. And one reason I say that is that I presented my plan to a high-ranking SEC officials at the SEC football at the spring meetings. And I said, I want the division play, and I want 9 games, and I want 7 in the division and 2 crossovers. I said, that means you play everybody within a 4-year period. He said, does that encompass home and home?
Yeah.
I said, no. He said, well, then that's not going to work. Now, that was my hint, that they're going to go to the 6-3, and they're going to try to have home and home for everybody across the board. That means Tennessee is going to play Auburn more frequently than they did. 1 of the things that has happened in the SEC when you have that many teams, over a 12-year period, Tennessee will have made one trip to College Station, and Texas A&M will have made one trip to Knoxville. That's not what the league wants. So they're going to go 6-3, and they are going to try to, I don't know about preserve rivalries, but at least have rival teams play each other more often.
Well,
More often. And you talk about Coach Saban talked about competitive balance. Sorry if I walked on you, Rob.
Yeah, no.
It's not Nick or Kirby's problem to create competitive balance. We need the Auburns, Tennessee. I can't include LSU in the group. They just won a national title a couple of years ago. Florida, there's no excuse for Florida with that talent-rich state not contending year in, year out. So get competitive balance in what we currently call the SEC East, and it just helps the product. I think if you inject sodium pentothal in Coach Saban's veins, he doesn't necessarily want Tennessee and Florida to get great again, if you know what I mean. But it certainly would help the football brand and the eyeballs that get glued to the TV every year.
It would. And look, Tennessee, they've done a miserable job hiring coaches lately. But the thing about Tennessee is, and I've covered this program since 1985, they have never had a better in-state talent than what they got right now.
Yeah.
The population has increased. The Tennessee Titans have helped with interest in football and high school football. And what's happened is Tennessee's been unable to keep the best players in state. If they can start keeping the best players in state, then look out. Tennessee should be back. I'm not going to say to the level they were in the 90s, but they should be back to where they can consistently win 9 or 10 games and compete for the East Division.
Yeah, Jimmy Hyams, I love having you on, and I'm with Doug. You ask any Auburn or Alabama fan, the iconic road trip is the Tennessee game, Neyland Stadium, the Vol Walk, Tennessee River. Can't get better. But look, thank you so much for taking time to join us on Friday morning. Tell people how they can follow you, because you've got a great sports show every day, and you're a hell of a blogger, hell of a writer.
Well, I appreciate that. My Twitter account's at Jimmy Hyams. You can find us, our blogs at 991thesportsanimal.com. We're on iHeartRadio, and if you're in the area, if in the Knoxville area, if you can find 99 on your dial, you'll find us. 990 AM, 99.1 FM, and we're on from 3 to 7. All right. Rob, I appreciate it. Always good to join you. Thank
Absolutely. You. This was a fantastic segment. Jimmy Hyams up in Knoxville. And let's do this, folks. We got Olin Buchanan going to join us here in just a minute from TexAgs.com. And we're going to get more into Texas A&M, what's going on out there. Again, Jimbo Fisher, Jimmy Hodge, Doug Dean, he was very confident at SEC Media Days. And like you said, that stuff with him and Nick Saban, I mean, that kind of stuff probably happens a lot more than we think. But Jimmy Hodge, that was a great series of questions. Tennessee, front defensive line, front offensive line, you got to have the players. And it's getting to where you get some depth there. Anything is possible, Haji. I have to say Haji because when I got Jimmy Hyams, Jimmy Ott, Jimmy Hodge, and then Jimmy Bell, the 4 Jimmy show, it's going to be the craziest show we'll ever have. But
give them hip hop names. Jay Hodge.
Yeah, Jay, Haji. That's what Rich from Atlanta calls him. So, Jimmy, what you learned before Olin comes on, and Olin will be on here in just a moment. But what you learned that you didn't really know about Tennessee prior to Jimmy Hyams being on here?
Well, he gave us a pretty good update on their defensive line because, again, you just have to have quality and depth at that position because, again, if you don't, teams are going to run the ball down your throat until you show you can't stop it. And then if you are able to do that, then, you can put them maybe in more predictable down and distance situations. I'm talking about opposing offenses, of course.
Yeah.
But I also found that, with 4 incoming defensive linemen that are going to be true freshmen as possible contributors, that could really help them a lot. And plus the fact that, Rodney Garner is going to be able to be very effective on the recruiting trail. But in today's modern college game. When you can put points on the board like Tennessee's offense can, the bar isn't overly high for defenses. I mean, if you can hold opponents in the mid to upper 20s, you got a chance to win every game. So I think it's important for them to, continue to make inroads on the recruiting trail on the defensive side of the ball, and certainly in that front seven.
Yeah. Okay. Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com is on with us from out in College Station. What a hell of a view, and what a great office door that opens onto the football practice fields in College Station, Texas. But native of White Oak, I love to say this, a town of just over 2,500 Americans with a football stadium that seats over 5,000. Damn, y'all got your priorities right. Olin, thanks for joining us. And speaking of a school that is stockpiling fantastic 4- and 5-star defensive linemen at Texas A&M, I bet they're chomping at the bits to get out on the practice field Monday morning, aren't they?
Well, I think so. I think there's a lot of excitement around this Texas A&M program, and when you take it even further and condense what you're looking at and look at the defensive line, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the 2021 defensive line class for Texas A&M was rated the number one defensive line, recruiting haul by 24/7. And then last year they topped it for 2022 when they had about, I don't know, I think it's like 4 5-star defensive linemen, and then 4 4-star ones, Walter Nolan and all those guys, Gabriel Brownlow Dindy. So, and that, doesn't count for, some guys that are held over like McKinley Jackson, who's going to be a junior this year, that, it came down between A&M and Alabama. I think he was a high 4-star that they think is going to be, played with a torn labrum all last year. Tough guy.
Yeah.
And they're really excited about what he has to offer. So they feel like that they have a lot of frontline talent and a lot of really good depth at the defensive line.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you what, I was watching last night about 6 o'clock. The SEC Network had the Alabama Texas A&M game. And I remember when, last year, the night of that game, it was what a night it was. And it's scary to think about the talent, Doug Dean, that A&M is amassing on the defensive line, because McKinley Jackson's a kid out of Lucedale, Mississippi, that I know Alabama and Auburn, I mean, Ole Miss tried to get in on him late when Kiffin came in. But Doug Dean, does any school out there that you can think of, have you seen them stockpiling this kind of talent on the defensive line? I can't remember it. I've seen some schools do it, but not at this level.
No, I have not. And good morning, Olin, from Lee County. I'm actually not in Lee County, but my brain is, as we approach the start of college football season. First of all, I want to compliment an incredible Aggies fan base that we've all here in the Deep South been treated to get to know since A&M joined the SEC, which I think was a match made in heaven. My question is sort of segues from what Rob just said. If you will, the welcome problem, Owen, of signing a historic number one recruiting class, which really created a buzz. And it's been probably overcooked, created a little back and forth in the off season. I'll leave it at that. But if you can comment or just opine, what is Coach Fisher doing, if anything, to what I'll call manage expectations, that when you sign a number one class like that, you're ecstatic about it on the one hand, but it might be testing reality for fans. And Aggie fans are very high IQ, so I think they'll be patient. But it doesn't automatically mean that you just run the table with ease this year in a gauntlet like the SEC. So from the point of view of the fan base and perceptions, how is Coach Fisher managing the psychology of the class they just signed?
Well, I think we all know that it's fun to be ranked, the number one or number two recruiting class or whatever, but we really don't know who has the best recruiting class for a couple of years. And so that's always a reminder. Now the guys have to go do it and show that that they're as good as advertised. And I think A&M's done a pretty good job developing their guys. So there's some there's some optimism about that. But I think A&M feels like that as good as this recruiting class is, that they're ready to be serious contenders with just maybe one or two of these guys coming in playing, having significant roles. I think you're going to expect Walter Nolan to come in and play. I don't necessarily think he's going to come in and start. I think Evan Stewart, I think he was the number 2 rated receiver in the country. Now, I think he's expected to come in and play, and I think he's going to be starting from day one. But for the most part,
Olin,
these guys.
Olin, if you can't hold those thoughts, we're going to take a quick break, and because I want to ask you about Walter Nolan. He was at St. Benedict in Cordova, then he went over to Knoxville last year. But great stuff. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. Great stuff, Olin. Before we went to the break, you were talking, and I was going to ask you about Walter Nolan, big defensive lineman. Ended up playing his senior year, I think, at Powell High School over in Knoxville. I think you would have thought, Tennessee, they're going to get him, but he goes to A&M. But keep talking about that defensive line class you got coming in, because you've got them stacked up at a scary, scary level.
Well, everybody has heard of Walter Nolan because he was the number 1 rated player. Shamar Stewart was, I think, the number 9 rated player, regardless of position, coming out of Opelika, Florida. So he's in a defensive lineman. Levius Overton was the guy that signed with him late. And I think he reclassified. So he's a 5-star guy. I mentioned Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, who was going to Oklahoma until Lincoln Riley decided to go to USC. So that's another 5-star guy. And, it's almost like you get down to I don't even know if I know how to say his name right. N.I. White or Anthony Lucas. Those are 2 guys. They were high 4-star guys, but you almost forget about them because there's so much excitement about the 5-star guys. There's a kid. They've got a pass rusher out of Katy, Texas, just right down the road from us, Malik Silla. And I think in most years, if you got him, that'd be the guy you're trumpeting as, hey, look at the big recruit we got, but because of what they did last year at that, at the defensive line, he almost gets lost. So, there's a lot of feeling that they're, again, talented and deep in the defensive line. To finish my earlier point, I was just going to say, as good as that recruiting class was, A&M and Jimbo Fisher had recruited in the top 10 the last 3 seasons, or the previous 3 recruiting classes. So they feel like that there's no reason not to be feel like you can be a contender this year. And Fisher has done nothing to back away from that. I think he's embraced the expectations.
Jimmy, jump in with the question with Olin Buchanan.
Yeah, Olin, it all comes down to quarterback, though, and we know, Max Johnson transferred from LSU, and of course he had the great throw late in the game to beat A&M, and he's a very
He's a very, very solid player, and he's been comfortable in pressure situations. You remember 2 years ago when LSU went into Gainesville the week before the SEC championship game. LSU came to town with I think 53 scholarship players, and he, I think, had his first start and pulled off that upset victory in which, he made numerous big plays. And I got to think Jimbo has to be really comfortable having a guy that has proved himself in pressure situations like that, and is really good at maximizing his strengths, minimizing his weaknesses, making great decisions, and not turning the ball over very much. Because when you have a team that has the talent of this A&M roster, if you minimize turnovers, you really got a great chance to win every week.
Yeah, and I think from what we understand, Max is pretty reliable, doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong on this one or two, but I think he had 28 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. And this behind an offensive line, quite frankly, at LSU, I think it's safe to say they weren't very good last year in the offensive line.
You are correct, sir.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't mean to be trying to pump up Max too much, but I want to look at everything objectively. I think after Keyshawn Butte left for a little while, I think that that hurt their offense too, and they weren't great in the running game. So we might have just got just a glimpse of the old proverbial tip of the iceberg with Max. But if what he is already is a finished product, then if you give me a quarterback that can, like you were just saying, Jimmy, that can direct the offense and avoid turnovers, well, you're going to be better than you were last year at that position. And I don't know if he's going to be the starter. I think Jimbo still thinks very highly of Haynes King, but I think if you feel like you got a guy like that maybe doesn't have to win the game for you, but can make sure you don't lose it. He won't lose it for you with some bad interceptions or some bad decisions. I think you can do a lot with that. And this team was some sound quarterback play away from being really good last year.
Yeah, and I think what can't be underestimated also is that Jimbo is notoriously hard on his quarterbacks because he is a quarterback. He's in that Brian Kelly mode. But I think by constantly working with your quarterback on a daily basis, trying to get them better, and the player himself realizes that's the whole goal behind your head coach working with you, pushing you to be the best you can be, that in my mind, that always ends up being a plus. And clearly there are certain players that handle that better than others. But, Max Johnson, he's got that legacy background, being the son of Brad Johnson. And, his dad has prepared him his whole career to be ready to be coached hard. And I think that's going to really help Max a lot.
Well, yeah, I think it will. One of the things that I saw incredible growth in Kellen Mond when he was the quarterback here after Jimbo got here, because Kellen, his dad was like an Army sergeant. So he was grown up around discipline and taking orders, and he didn't mind the criticism. He handled it well. And I'm not saying Zach Calzada didn't. Heck, I thought Zach Calzada, even though I still say he was average to below average for the whole package of last year, I think he got better as the year went on, despite playing hurt. I think also, I'm pretty sure you guys would agree, whoever your team is, that if I don't know that I want a quarterback that can't take tough coaching, because are you telling me that you're not mentally tough enough to take a lot of criticism? If you're not, are you going to be mentally tough enough to make the big play? When it's 3rd and 10 with a minute to go and the game on the line. I think if you're able to take hard coaching, that's actually a good thing. And maybe Jimbo has I don't know what he was like at Florida State because I wasn't around him all the time, but the quarterbacks he's had here have been very open
Yeah.
or receptive, I guess I should say, to the way he coaches them.
Doug Dean?
Olin, I'm glad you referenced Zach Calzada, and I do not want my question to be kind of lure you into having to talk about the Auburn Tigers. You're on here to get your fans to say gig 'em and talk Aggie football, but I'm asking a big picture question. Yeah,
I'll give you an honest answer. It might not be right, but it's as honest as I can, as I see it.
Like a friend of mine says, or no, Duffy says, wrong a lot, but never in doubt. So my question goes to the kind of the new world order now. I think you guys would agree is, and this was probably true actually several years ago when they liberalized the transfer portal to the dismay of most head football coaches. But you sign 2 or 3 great quarterbacks. You'd like to sign 1 or 2 elite quarterbacks a year because stuff happens. They don't pan out. Evaluations are tough. Ask the NFL. And so related to Zach Calzada as the sort of the example of what I'm talking about, Coach Fisher was very complimentary and classy about Zach at SEC Media Days. And I guess in a perfect world, Jimbo and every head coach might have preferred that Zach Calzada stayed at Texas A&M and competed, and you see best man plays, and then you've got some depth there. But what is a coach to do now, or an offensive coordinator, when you sign 2 quarterbacks and by they can understand redshirting, which will probably happen with Arch Manning. I think he's already talked about that. They're going to develop him a year or 2. But most of these quarterbacks not only want NIL money, but they want to see the playing field, if not their freshman year, their second year. And so is it just one of those things that you better hope to not have much injury at the QB position because of what I'm describing? Your thoughts, Olin?
Well, yeah, but you know what? I think the whole quarterback thing, I don't think it's new. I remember Philip Fulmer. What did he have? He had Eric Ainge and Brett Schaefer come in as 2 highly regarded quarterback recruits. That would have been, what, 2005, 2006?
Yeah.
And he was asked about it. He said, well, one's going to win the job, one's going to transfer, because that's just the reality. And even, you can always, if you think real hard about it, think of a lot of quarterbacks that have, in the past had transferred, but they either, a lot of times they were willing to either sit out a year or go down in classification, like Joe Flacco when he left Pitt, lost to Tyler Palco, and said, well, I'm going to go play at Delaware then. So it's really not new. I think the big issue is, though, that now you have a lot of kids that are coming in and they think that they're supposed to be the star quarterback from day one. And guys, if you'll go back, how many quarterbacks, even when they're freshmen, are really good when they're redshirt freshmen? Tim Tebow, of course, I don't know how many times I have to remind people, he was not the starting quarterback at Florida in 2006.
Chris Leak
was.
Yeah.
And they would bring in some special packages for Tebow, but Chris Leak was the quarterback of that team. And when Vince Young was at Texas, he redshirted. Johnny Manziel redshirted. And you try to, I guess, really try to drill that into some of those kids that, hey, it's better for you if you don't expect to come in and play right away and learn what you're getting yourself into. And some guys just don't want to hear that. And but I think from what I've been around with Jimbo, unlike maybe some coaches that have been here before, he's very honest with those quarterbacks. And he says, hey, here's the situation. And this is, if you're the best guy, you're going to play. But, we got some guys here that have advantages on you. And I think that's the only way to be, because if you don't have to look any further than Texas A&M and count back about 8 years ago to see what can happen if you're not up front with your quarterbacks, because you might have 2 5-star guys transfer within a week of each other.
Yeah,
because that happened here.
Then again, the delicious. Who knows how it'll go? I don't even know if it's that. I can tell you, most Auburn fans, I would say 90% believe Zach Calzada will be the starter game one, barring injury, and go from there. So if that's the case, it sets up an intriguing Aggies road trip into Jordan-Hare Stadium, to say the least.
Yeah, and it's just like I guess it'll be intriguing if Max is the quarterback when LSU comes here. I mean, that's just what college football is now. Right?
That's where we are. You're right, Olin.
Yeah.
Well, you remember Olin, Brandon Stewart, who quarterbacked A&M to the 1998 Big 12 championship. They came from 2 touchdowns behind against Kansas State to win the game in overtime, and it kept Kansas State from being in the BCS national championship game. Had they won the ball game, Brandon and Peyton Manning basically split time during their freshman year at A&M, and a lot of people don't realize that.
At Tennessee.
I can remember at Tennessee, and I can vividly remember a lot of Tennessee fans that really like Stewart the best. But
well, you know what? I guarantee you they liked him even more after they won that Kansas State game, because by beating Kansas State, that put Tennessee into the championship game.
It sure did, but Brandon Stewart was really a quality player. But after his freshman year, I know his dad had a discussion with Fulmer, and Brandon obviously felt there were plenty of big time programs he could go to, and be the starter, and that's the way it turned out. But a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these quarterbacks that go on to future success, they had been at a previous place and had been in a situation where you just had a really quality at that particular position. And there's players that leave for the right reasons and players that leave for the wrong reasons. But in a case like that, it was a really good decision on his part.
Yeah. We got about 3 minutes left, but that's great points about that, Jimmy.
Oh, Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
I mean,
but Joe had injury issues that kept really keeping him from getting a chance to really compete for that starting job. And lots of times injuries are just something that you can't control, and you never know how they're going to happen. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the greatest gifts from the football heavens you could ever receive. LSU was able to pull off before the 2018 season. But Joe used that season because he hadn't played in a while.
Yeah.
By the time they got to the last 3 or 4
Jimmy, we're down to about 2 minutes.
He was really developing.
Yeah. And Olin, listen, man, this has been a great football conversation. We're about out of time, but close out your closing comments and then make sure let people know how they can follow you. And I just want to tell you how much we appreciate you being on with us every week. We love it. And I'm with Doug. It's a marriage made in heaven, A&M coming to the conference because of y'all's reverence, your traditions, and that Dan Collie dog, Reveille. I love it.
Well, the Aggies love being here. And enjoy the as we've talked about before, the atmosphere on game day in the SEC is like none other, and that's why it's so much more fun.
Yeah.
As opposed to being in the Big 12, and I guess Texas won't drag us down when they join, but it still won't be any fun going over the still stuffed shirts over in Austin. But but you'll get to go to Baton Rouge and Starkville and all those fun places.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're looking forward to it. That season, about 36 days away. Can't get here fast enough. And if you want to follow the Aggies this season, or just want to look in on us and see what's going on, you can follow us at texags.com. We like to think we're the premier outlet for all things Texas A&M sports. So texags.com, I always tell you, Rob, it's the abbreviated version of Texas Aggies.
Yep.
texags.com. You can follow on Twitter there too. And if you're so inclined, you can follow me on Twitter at Olin Buchanan. I'm not one of those guys going to hide behind a anonymous handle. It's just my name, Olin Buchanan. So you figure out how to spell Olin Buchanan, you can figure out how to follow me, and I'd appreciate it if you did.
Absolutely. Love having you on here. Just if you're keeping track, I just did the calculation in my head. My Gazenda's Jethro Bodine style, 764 hours away from the start of the college football season. Hey, We most
And
often see the
fast
face of
enough.
Christ in the least among us. Go out and help somebody, and don't get down on yourself, folks. We live in the greatest country in the world. Let's act like it. Be a leader. We're out of here. See you tomorrow.